Welcome back, and today we will review DCF's decision-making when we have sufficient evidence to support a child being unable to remain safely in the home on both a short-term and/or a long-term basis. If the situation rises to the level that DCF must intervene in order to ensure children are kept safe, this is called present danger. Once identified and an intervention is necessary, we need to continue gathering information or time to get the family engaged into appropriate services. By statute, we are required to attempt to implement what's called a safety plan. A safety plan is a collaborative agreement made in partnership with the parents and their supports to ensure temporary safety of the children. For example, if we respond to a home that is hazardous to young children, and during our discussions it is apparent that the caregiver is suffering from depression as a result of, say, losing a loved one recently, and is feeling overwhelmed, it is DCF's role to assist the mother in getting back on track. A safety plan can be used to safely separate the children from the home with a neighbor, friend, or family member who can assist with child care until the home condition is remedied and the children can safely return to the home. During this time, we must also assess for mental health and to work to assist the mother in obtaining proper treatment to prevent this from being an ongoing occurrence. A safety plan is meant to be a temporary band-aid to allow for the children to be safe while we work with the underlying issues. Not all safety plans have to be out of the home. Every family is different and their needs are different, so we are to use the least restrictive measures possible to ensure child safety. There are also often times when a family member or a friend can move into the residence on a temporary basis to ensure the safety of the child while we continue to work with the family. It is horrifically traumatic to remove a child from the only environment they know, even if the environment is something that we find unacceptable. Because of this trauma, we are tasked with moving mountains to stabilize a family through services such as counseling, parenting, life skills, etc. Whether the safety plan is in-home or out of home, the intention is to ensure the child is safe while DCF gathers as much information as possible, such as records, reports, educational information, neighbors, friends, and family collaterals, as well as any evidence gathered by law enforcement to make a long-term safety decision for the child. As we stated before, not every situation is a long-term situation. Families have crises and struggles, but that doesn't always mean that their children are truly unsafe based on the statutory guidelines. So in a nutshell, the safety plan allows us to gather sufficient information to look at the big picture of the family, to see their strengths and the potential areas for needed support. It is when we have gathered sufficient information to support if the child is safe or unsafe in the home that we then make a decision to close the case or take more intrusive measures. If the parents agree to a temporary safety plan, there are times that DCF will still ultimately decide to remove the children, and other times we can remedy the situation with services. We have a statutory obligation to exhaust all efforts to engage the family in services while working a safety plan. So if you are on scene with us, your support and encouragement to these families to engage with us so we can make attempts to remedy or assist their needs is really helpful. But what happens when a parent tells us to take a long walk off a short pier and they are unwilling to participate in a safety plan? If the children are determined to be at imminent risk and the parents are uncooperative, DCF has no alternative options but to remove the children from the home to ensure their safety. This is called a shelter, or commonly known as a removal, which will turn into a court order to maintain the children out of home while we go through a judicial process that includes services through a case plan in order to have the children safely returned to the home. Fun fact, DCF does not need a court order in hand to remove children from the custody of the parents or caregivers. Based on statute, we must have a preponderance of evidence to support that the children are at imminent risk of abuse or neglect if left in the custody of the parent or the caregiver. This assessment is based on statutory guidelines and is cleared through multiple levels of leadership within DCF prior to such actions being taken. So when you see an investigator on scene making multiple phone calls, this is why. While we don't require a court order in hand, DCF is required to present the shelter petition and evidence to support probable cause within 24 hours to the court for review and final determination on the shelter status, which will be made by the judge. Remember, the safety plan is only implemented to keep children safe while we attempt to remedy the situation, engage the family in sufficient services, and gather additional information to determine our final safety decision. In the next episode, we will be talking about what happens when children are sheltered and parents are ordered to court-ordered services.